Good evening, Fernando, and thank you for your hospitality to SKF10. Before I proceed with my account of the highlights of our 10 years of activity, I have the sad duty to pay a tribute to the memory of three outstanding scientific personalities who have played an important role with SKF and have passed away since our last meeting. The first one is Jacques Bouchard, who passed away on January 30. He was a senior advisor to the Administrateur Général, the chief executive officer of CEA, the French Atomic Energy. He was a former director of energy of CEA, a former director of military application of CEA. Jacques had participated in several of our conferences. He had the gift to share with us his knowledge of all things nuclear. On present PWR reactors, he mastered everything from the fuel cycles to reactor safety to the management of long-lived waste. As for the future, that of fast neutron reactors, he was chair of the fourth generation international consortium grouping 10 countries. As director of military applications, he was a fervent proponent of nuclear weapons non-proliferation. When President Chirac took the much criticized decision to resume nuclear tests in the Pacific Islands, he argued that it was possible to maintain the validity of the French nuclear deterrent by simulations that would avoid the catastrophic effects of underwater testing. It was under his guidance that a supercomputing facility and a megajoule laser comparable to the American effort were put in place. Then we have José Mariano Gago, who passed away on April 15. José Mariano Gago, a high-energy physicist, took part in experiments at CERN with the group from École Polytechnique. Following the political change in Portugal, he was appointed in 1995 Minister of Higher Education and Research and kept that position with 3 successive governments until 2011. He pursued with passion a wish to bring science to the reach of a broad public. In 1996, he created Ciencia Viva, which is now directed by Rosalia Vargas, who hosted our conference in 2014. José Mariano was director of his laboratory in Coimbra University, whilst carrying numerous other European and international responsibility. He was suffering from cancer, which we could never have imagined since he remained so active until the end. His death was therefore a shock to all of us, as well as an immense loss for European science. And then I have to come to Yves Lancelot, who died on 7th September. Yves Lancelot was an oceanographer and geophysicist. His research dealt with the analysis of sediments in the global ocean, which revealed the history of oceans, the mechanism linking ocean circulation, and the climates of the past. In 1970, he emigrated to the USA and spent nearly 5 years at Lamont Observatory of Columbia University in New York. He then came back to France because the DGRST, the French government chief scientific agency, asked him to reorganize the French oceanography and adapt it to the international enterprise of deep sea drilling project. Then the Americans appointed him for 6 years as director for the Scripps Institution of the Oceanography at the University of California at San Diego. Back to France, he became professor at Paris Pierre et Marie Curie University and directeur de recherche at CNRS. It was then that I asked him to become vice president of AFAS, the French Association for the Advancement of Science that I was chairing. Because of his close link with the president of the Chamber of Commerce of Marseille, we were able to participate in 2000 to WorldMed, a so-called high mediatized event occurring every 10 years or so. It was the first time our sharing knowledge appeared in public, and many in this room today still have memories of that Marseille meeting. He had a passion for sailing, and despite his cardiac condition, he crossed the Atlantic twice with his 30-foot sailboat. He was an outstanding personality, and his passing away leaves us with a very bitter feeling. I'm asking you to please stand up and observe a minute of silence. Thank you. As you have just heard in the eulogy of Yves Lancelot, sharing knowledge actually started because the foundation was born under the aegis of AFAS, the French Association for the Advance of Science, which we held that meeting in Marseille in 2000. Well, we have now the next step is you will see the list of conferences. Federico? Ça va? Ils sont là? Bon. Oh, yeah. I can see. Yeah. In fact, the next step were at CERN in 2004 for the 50th anniversary, then Casablanca in 2005, and then here at ICTP in 2006 at the invitation of Srinivasan, also known as Srini, your predecessor, Fernando. In fact, it was just after the 2006 meeting that we realized that AFAS was mostly concerned with the French scientific scene and that it was appropriate to create an ad hoc structure. We chose to seat it in Geneva, where I reside, and were immediately recognized to be in the public interest. So you will see the goals of the foundation as summarized in the declaration of the Chamber of Commerce, which is in French, but I'll give you the English translation. The goal is to encourage a dialogue between scientists independently from their country of origin, and in particular between those from the developed and the emerging world, to constitute a network within the civil society, ending in concrete projects leading to a sustainable development and to the reduction of inequalities between countries and disequilibrium between nations. To organize for that purpose multidisciplinary conferences tackling basic needs, water, energy, food, access to the digital civilization and to fundamental science, and topical subjects such as preventing catastrophes resulting from natural causes or from human activity. Let us too briefly recall the 10-year history of this meeting. In the next slide, you can see that we have a network of 500 people from 45 countries, including today we have more countries than last time. Our goal in organizing conferences and reducing inequality between nations through development is being put in question by certain ecological circles who oppose growth and say that there is not enough resources on Earth for that purpose, which might require that we would need another planet. This ideological argument has its roots in Malthus and was revived as soon as 1968 by the Ehrlich, husband and wife, in their population bomb. So the next slide shows that you have this, and in fact, they were proved to be wrong, because Berlow, who won a Nobel Peace Prize, was at the origin of the Green Revolution, because technology is supreme. And so now, even though there are certainly problems, India and Pakistan now export wheat, whereas they had predicted that there would be 1 billion people who would starve. Now, there are another camp, which are the optimists, Mr. Simon and Marchetti. when Ehrlich published the population bomb, he said the population growth would quickly outstrip the growth in supply of food and resources. Simon was highly skeptical of such claims, and so it's an interesting anecdote. He proposed a wager telling Ehrlich to select any raw material he wanted and to select any data more than 1 year away, and Simon would bet that the commodity price on that date would be lower than what at the time of the wager. Ehrlich and his colleague peeped on paper 5 metals that they think would undergo big price increases, and they were chromium, copper, nickel, tin, and tungsten. Then on paper, they bought $200 worth of each for a total of about $1,000. Using the price of September 29, 1980 as an index, they designated 1990, 10 years hence, as the payoff date. If the inflation-adjusted price of the various metals rose, Simon would pay Ehrlich. If the prices fell, Ehrlich would pay them. Between 1980 and 1990, the world population grew by more than 800 million, the largest increase in 1 decade in all of history. But by September 1990, the price of each of Ehrlich's selected metals had fallen. Chromium, which had sold for $3.90 a pound in 1980, was down to $3.70. Tin, which was $8.72 a pound, was down to $3.88 a decade later. As a result, in October 1989, Paul Ehrlich mailed Julian Simon a check of $567.60 to settle the wager in Simon's favor. I would like to conclude that general overview. The substance of our conferences outlined in our statute to meet the everyday needs in food, energy, through development, is what has occupied all our meetings, and it will be the same for the present one. But our preoccupation has also something more esoteric, which might have escaped the attention of many, and that is nothing less than the future of the scientific enterprise. Today, science, technology, medicine is supported by the genetic pool, as it were, of a community comprising roughly, let's say, 3 billion out of the 6 billion humans. But it is generally agreed that the world population will grow and stabilize at something like 12 billion at the end of the century. Will our allies grow in the same proportion? We believe that the number of potential geniuses should be the same in Africa, where statistically there can be, potential Einsteins and Mozart geniuses that will need education to develop their potential. It is the responsibility of the present generation to train them. A world when the genetic pool supporting rational knowledge would remain at 3 billion out of 12 would put in danger the whole scientific enterprise, which is the cornerstone of our civilization. With the general overview, I end and now wish to zoom in on what I consider 2 main accomplishments in terms of results. The first is Internet for the African continent. And the second one, with the help of the 2 young men sitting at this table, Mohamed Gouighri and Mahmoud Alstaty, is the one of bringing Ph.D. students to complete their research work at CERN. Let us go back in time to the 10-12 December 2007, which was prehistory. We did not even have an internet site. The first person to draw our attention to the problem of Internet for Africa was Monique Petitdelier, who is in this room, in Casablanca, in 2005. She was working on the first geophysical electronic year and could not correspond with her colleagues in Africa. And this is how, by word of mouth, we could hold a meeting in Montpellier in 2007 with scientists from 6 African countries, and I read the manifesto. This workshop will provide a platform to discuss how African scientists could benefit from these new technologies at an affordable cost and what consequences in general these technologies could have on African society, and more particularly when it comes to agriculture, climate, and fighting tropical disease. The workshop will first focus on how to supply African universities with high-speed internet, then how to create an inter-African network, and how to finally introduce African scientists to global scientific collaboration. African scientists for 6 sub-Saharan countries, international internet, and grid technology specialists, industrialists, with a sharp knowledge of African business and African European political representative will be coming together to discuss these topics from 10 to 12 December in Montpellier under the aegis of the Sharing Knowledge Foundation. The main originality of the meeting was the active participation of Les Cottrell, Deputy Director of the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, Computer Center. As some of you may know, SLAC is a laboratory that earned 6 Nobel Prizes, including the one they shared with Brookhaven National Lab for the GPSI particle. Lee wanted to rely on objective measurements, and so he used the method of pings, which is illustrated in the next slide. This method was originally used by high-energy physics to communicate between CERN and the US. But in 2000, that was in 1905. But in 2007, its main uses was for research and education network, and involved a very active participation already by ICTP. So that's extremely important. And so we found something which was really shocking. That is, connectivity in Africa was passing through USA or Europe. We discovered from trustable information that an email sent from Madagascar went first to Europe, whereas if it came from South Africa, it went first to the US. This meant that Africa was in fact subsidizing the global network to the tune of $450 million a year. The result of this was that thanks to Thierry Devard, who was a correspondent of the general direction headed by Viviane Reding, was inviting us to Brussels in January, and we pleaded for 2 initiatives. The first one is AXIS, involving local exchange boxes, and the other one is Africa Connect, a project to link research education networks with GEAN, the European Academic Network. Now, between December 2007 and October 2008, this was the result of our Montpellier meeting. It's really striking. The 1st of July 2008 was the installation of the first computing grid in Senegal at Université Cheikh Anta Diop. The hardware was provided by a collaboration between Hewlett-Packard and UNESCO. An installation was provided by Guy Wormser, who at the time was heading the Institut des Grilles du CNRS, a co-organizer of Montpellier. Second, on October 1st, 2008, a proposal by Viviane Reding at the College of Commissioners of the UA, which were Potocnik, Reding, Verheugen, and Michel, and their correspondent, Jean-Pierre Overhood-Edzine, Commissioner of the African Union for Human Resources, Science and Technology, have set up as a priority objective Africa Connect, to link African REN with GEAN, and AXIS, a system of regional and national interconnections, which is what we advocated. And I'll come to the next most important accomplishment, which was to appoint a Moroccan student, Mohamed Gouighri, who's sitting here, and more recently, a Palestinian, Mahmoud Alstaty, to complete a Ph.D. at CERN by integration in CERN staff. Before giving them the floor, I would like to briefly explain how this came to be. Since 1996, a group of Moroccan universities led by Abdeslam Houmada, who will come later on tonight, had been working at the Atlas experiment from their desks in Morocco. But John Ellis, here present, pointed out to me that to have someone residing on the spot would be an immense advantage. You take part in daily discussions, you raise your hand, you participate to decision, and this is for the benefit of the whole collaboration, even though who reside at home. He had the idea, which in retrospect was a stroke of genius, that we should ask CERN to allow SKF to cover the costs incurred by CERN, which are, the monthly pay, the travel insurance, etc., for a student chosen and presented by SKF to the CERN Doctoral Student Selection Board. And then he left me to find the money. In the end, it was the Hassan II Academy of Science and Technology of Morocco who agreed to fund 1 year, and the CERN legal department drafted an agreement between CERN, the Academy, and SKF, valid for 1 year, with the possibility of an extension if necessary to complete a thesis. The agreement was signed, a selection panel was held with the head of the CNRST of Morocco, and finally, Mohamed Gouighri and Sarah Boudboul arrived at CERN, and we have a welcome ceremony, and you can see on the next slide the photo of the reception at CERN with the principal actor, and you have at the extreme right Mr. Gaëtan Carnot, who agreed to give an extra 3 months with his foundation. And now the name of Carnot may be very familiar. His great-great-grandfather was Lazare Carnot, the organizer of the French Revolution. And then everyone knows the Carnot theorem. And then, of course, there was also a president of the Republic, of French Republic, Sadi Carnot, who was assassinated. So he's now a businessman, very active. He graduated from the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, and he's a businessman between Marrakesh and Dubai, etc., and he agreed to this. So it's really a very diverse founding. So to extend the scheme to a Palestinian involved an extraordinary series of circumstances. The first decisive one was to find the money. And it so happens that in May of 2013, I had been invited by the French embassy in Israel to a colloquium about water sharing with Jordan and the Palestinians, and we're going to hear a few things about this today. And my sister Liliane, who is a painter, well known in Israel, told me to contact one of her followers, Avner Azulai, who is Director General of the Mark Rich Foundation, and she said he might help you in your project. A busy man, he agreed to meet me at the bakery where he took his breakfast on a Sunday morning. So I had 15 minutes to tell him about SKF, Morocco, etc., and then ask him, would the Mark Rich Foundation support a Palestinian to come to CERN? He asked how much. I said $2,000. 2,000 Swiss francs a month. And he said, well, make an application to the board and we'll see. The board met the next month and said, yes, we could have a slot for 1 year, starting in 2014, for what would be called a Mark Rich Fellowship. It turns out that that same summer, Mark Rich passed away. And so it was in his memory that the fellowship was known. So Liliane is in this room, and without her, nothing would have happened. But compared to Morocco, who had a government agreement with CERN, the Palestinian Authority had never heard of CERN. So the CERN legal department prepared a new agreement broadening our mandate to all universities of the MENA region, with the sole condition that they had agreement with Atlas to accept the SKF candidate. This agreement was signed with the Director General Hoyer in September 2013. So you can see this in the next slide. We're signing the agreement. And so we could invite application from 3 universities, Al-Quds, Birzeit in Ramallah, and the An-Najjar National University, who had, as it were, the privilege to be the only one to grant PhDs. It's a kind of bureaucratic things, it could happen in many countries, rivalities between universities and this sort of thing. And so we were offering them something for free, but it turns out we had difficulties. But to make a long story short, no application emerged, and we began to negotiate with the result that we had 3 applicants from An-Najjar who had already completed a master's elsewhere, either in Europe or at another university. And after the selection, Mahmoud, who was our choice, was submitted and accepted by the CERN selection board, and usually member states applicants who compete, they have to give their nationality. But there, the nationality was SKF student. So we really had a privilege over the countries which were member states of CERN, which is considerable. And now I've finished. I will give the floor to Mohamed Gouighri, who already has the experience that you, Mahmoud, are going to have in 3 or 4 years of teaching in Palestine, and the floor is yours. Alors, you want to speak? Voilà.
So before I start, I would like to thank the Sharing Knowledge Foundation for the invitation to take part of this interesting conference. As I said, before I start, I would like to thank the foundation for this opportunity to take part of this interesting meeting. And I can switch to French if I will just give an overview, a brief overview concerning my research before I went to CERN, and in CERN, and after I defended my PhD students, my PhD. So in French. Bon, en début, après que j'ai terminé donc mes études de licence à l'université de Casablanca, il y avait donc une opportunité d'intégrer un groupe et donc un master qui a été pour la première fois à Casablanca. Et donc j'ai été réussi d'être un membre de ce groupe dont j'ai donc terminé. Je soutenais donc mon master ou bien mon DESA sur un thème qui est très intéressant jusqu'à nos jours-là, qui a été sur un thème de la physique des particules et notamment sur la recherche de la violation de la charge et de la parité, et bien sûr de répondre à une question qui est très intéressante, c'est de savoir la nature de l'univers, parlant de la matière et aussi de l'antimatière. Et après donc que je soutenais donc mon DESA avec donc une mention bien, j'ai été intégré dans le groupe et faire partie des 2 étudiants qui ont été pris dans Atlas, dont j'ai commencé donc en premier temps quelques informations et donc début donc l'analyse dans 3 ou 4 différents aspects. Donc un premier aspect donc il concerne donc tout ce qui est lié au hardware d'Atlas. Une deuxième partie c'est l'analyse donc de la physique d'Atlas du CERN. Et la fin, donc, c'est donc un peu de savoir l'architecture par laquelle donc, on analyse les données à travers la grille de computing grid. Et donc, en 2009, j'ai fait plusieurs durant les 2 premières années de ma thèse, donc j'ai effectué plusieurs stages dans des laboratoires européens, surtout l'Institut royal de technologie de Stockholm, donc le laboratoire de physique subatomique de Grenoble et aussi au CERN. Et toujours, lorsque je pars donc vers un laboratoire européen, je vois toujours qu'il y a une grande différence. Bon, différence, je parle ici de tout ce qui est lié donc à les techniques d'information et surtout Internet. Et lorsque je reviens donc au Maroc, donc toujours il y a des difficultés, surtout pour donc avoir donc être en liaison avec des gens du CERN. Et surtout, notamment sur l'analyse des données, que ce soit des données ou bien la simulation, Monte Carlo. Et je demande toujours si je vais avoir une opportunité donc de poursuivre ou bien de faire une partie longue durée donc, au CERN ou bien dans des laboratoires européens. Et donc, en 2009, on a reçu donc une information qui a été très intéressante, surtout pour les gens et pour les étudiants, donc la jeunesse des étudiants marocains, en tant qu'il y a donc une opportunité d'avoir donc une bourse pour faire une année au CERN. Et donc après, donc il y avait deux parties, donc ou bien et ça a été fait selon deux parties. Donc il y avait une sélection au niveau de la sélection. Il y avait une sélection au niveau local, c'est-à-dire un comité local marocain. Et après, donc il y avait donc on était donc 5 ou 6 étudiants qui ont été donc choisis pour après passer donc une autre sélection à travers donc un comité international dont donc il y avait donc les gens du CERN donc les gens du CERN donc aussi la fondation donc partager le savoir et aussi des gens de CNRST de Maroc et CNRS de la France et aussi de l'Académie royale des sciences et techniques de Maroc. Et bon, ça a été ma première opportunité donc de faire une thèse dans des conditions qui sont très excellentes. Et j'ai passé donc une année au CERN dont j'ai travaillé dans différentes parties, bon, dans la calibration électronique des détecteurs, dans l'analyse et donc l'analyse des données, des vraies données d'Atlas, et aussi donc dans le computing grid et d'autres donc aspects. Et après donc et ensuite donc j'ai pris donc comme donc le directeur monsieur Klapisch a parlé, donc après donc lorsque j'ai donc terminé donc une année, donc il y a eu aussi une opportunité donc de trois mois qui a été donc attribuée par la fondation Carnot. Bon, et après lorsque donc ça m'a fait donc un grand plaisir donc de terminer donc ma thèse et aussi d'avoir plus de connaissances et aussi d'avoir plus d'activités, que ce soit entre les groupes du Maroc ou bien avec des gens dans d'autres laboratoires, que ce soit en Europe ou bien en Amérique. Et en début 2012, donc, j'ai soutenu ma thèse donc, à Casablanca. Et après, donc, il y avait que vous connaissez tous. Donc mon rêve, c'est donc de faire partie d'un laboratoire marocain, donc de faire l'enseignement et aussi la recherche. Donc avant ça, donc il y avait le printemps arabe, donc il y avait donc une rupture au niveau des postes au Maroc. Et donc j'ai commencé toujours dans la recherche en allant donc au LPSC, dont j'ai fait donc un stage. J'ai travaillé en collaboration avec les gens de LPSC, donc de Grenoble, et aussi de l'université de Uppsala dans un sujet d'intéressant sur la recherche donc de Higgs chargé, qui est donc un moyen donc de prédire s'il y a donc une nouvelle physique ou bien une physique au-delà du modèle standard. Et en même temps donc après, donc, il y avait donc une opportunité d'ouverture d'un poste de prof assistant à l'université d'Agadir, dont je suis pris, et actuellement je suis professeur assistant à cette université. Et donc l'idée, c'est bon, donc c'est de faire une calibration entre l'enseignement et aussi de la recherche avec Atlas et dans d'autres donc expériences dont je vais parler après. Et actuellement, donc, je fais de l'enseignement et aussi, donc, on vient de préparer, on a fondé donc un groupe de physique des hautes énergies, même s'il n'y a pas des personnes, donc avec 2 ou 4 donc, autres personnes qui travaillent sur la physique nucléaire, mais on essaie toujours d'encadrer des étudiants donc, que j'encadre, que ce soit au niveau de la licence et aussi au niveau du master, afin donc d'avoir donc une masse ou bien des étudiants qui ont pris pour faire donc une recherche après dans cette discipline. Et actuellement, donc, je travaille toujours avec les gens de Casablanca et dans un autre sujet qui concerne donc le neutrino. Donc cette année, donc le prix Nobel a été pris, et notamment sur donc l'aspect qui est dans la synétronite, donc ces oscillations qui donnent donc leur masse. Et donc c'est notamment sur la recherche d'un autre neutrino qui s'appelle un neutrino stérile. Et donc bon, le rêve ne s'arrête pas là, donc ce n'est que donc un début, et j'aimerais bien que la suite sera très intéressante.
Je voudrais maintenant poser une question.
Oui.
Lorsque je t'ai dit que tu allais aller au CERN, je dis que tu vas apprendre de la physique, mais tu vas aussi apprendre un certain nombre de choses, à constituer un réseau avec lequel tu pourras correspondre après et qui te servira pour ton enseignement et ta recherche. Est-ce que tu peux nous dire si tu as conservé un espèce de petit réseau qui te sert maintenant encore?
Maintenant, c'est au niveau. J'ai toujours des contacts avec les gens du CERN et aussi avec donc le groupe du cluster donc de physique donc du Maroc. Et actuellement, donc, je travaille avec d'autres personnes, donc surtout avec le INDP3 sur une expérience qui s'appelle Stéréo. Elle est de près de l'ILL. Et on essaie donc de faire la recherche sur le neutrino stérile. Mais bien sûr, toujours donc, je suis toujours lié au CERN et j'aimerais toujours bien sûr suivre.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres personnes qui voudraient poser des questions maintenant avant qu'on passe à mon collègue?
Donc, juste donc. Simultanément, donc, je fais d'autres actualités, surtout avec l'Académie, Global Academy des jeunes, des chercheurs à travers le monde, qui est un réseau donc, qui essaie donc, de regrouper tous les jeunes chercheurs à travers le monde. Et aussi, on a fondé une autre association qui lie donc les jeunes chercheurs arabes à travers le monde. Bon, c'est...
Oui, merci donc pour votre présentation. J'aimerais savoir quelle est votre ambition universitaire.
Au niveau de l'université, donc le plus intéressant que je suis dans je retournais vers mon origine, là où j'étais né, donc c'est la région d'Agadir, et donc d'aider donc les étudiants d'Agadir, donc ça me fait donc un autre plaisir. Donc, et comme j'ai dit, donc l'idée donc c'est de lier et de donner, parce qu'ils sont très donc actifs, et surtout donc lorsque j'enseigne par exemple la première année, donc ils posent toujours des questions, ils veulent savoir donc toutes les particules fondamentales. Ils posent les questions: c'est quoi un boson, c'est quoi un quark, est-ce qu'il y a des choses très petites que ça, est-ce qu'il y a des donc c'est un peu ce qui est fait. Donc
attendez,
yes, ouais.
j'avais le micro.
J'ai une autre question. Donc maintenant, vous avez une certaine situation universitaire et est-ce que vous avez des étudiants? Parce que vous avez profité d'un certain réseau maintenant. Il faudrait aussi que les étudiants forment des étudiants pour qu'ils profitent de ce réseau et que ça forme une certaine équipe.
Oui, exactement. Donc, comme j'ai dit, donc Agadir, c'est une université qui ne fait pas partie donc, de ce réseau de physique de haute énergie. Donc, mon idée, c'est donc de commencer à former des étudiants à partir de la licence. Donc, on n'a pas de master spécial, il n'y a pas donc un réseau de professeurs qui sont dans le domaine, mais j'essaie toujours donc cette année donc j'ai pris des étudiants qui font un master de l'énergétique et je leur donné j'ai passé assez de temps pour donc leur donner donc des sujets liés donc à la physique des hautes énergies. Donc j'essaie toujours donc de partir vers le plus loin possible, c'est-à-dire de la licence et après du master pour donc faire doctorat. Je pense qu'il y a une question.
J'avais pas une question, j'avais juste quelque chose à rajouter. Donc, je tiens quand même à dire que Mohamed, quand il a eu son poste, donc il était candidat, donc son dossier, donc toutes les connaissances et les compétences qu'il a acquises lors de ses années de thèse et lors de ses séjours au CERN en Europe, lui ont permis en fait d'être classé premier. Donc il y avait ouverture de 6 postes et donc au niveau du Maroc, pour chaque poste de prof assistant, 3 candidats sont convoqués, ce qui veut dire qu'il y avait 18 candidats de convoqués pour ce poste-là et Mohamed a été classé premier parmi l'ensemble de ces candidats. Et donc je pense que la question d'Anissa, c'était, bien sûr, pour sa carrière, il y a encore du chemin. Donc, il est prof assistant. Donc, en ce moment, il doit préparer une habilitation pour qu'il puisse diriger de façon officielle des recherches. D'accord? Et puis après, passer, donc, avoir un poste de professeur de l'enseignement supérieur. Bien sûr, ce qu'il doit faire actuellement, c'est monter un groupe et rejoindre le réseau universitaire de physique des hautes énergies, donc, dont il est déjà un membre actif, mais comme membre associé de l'Université de Casablanca. Je pense qu'il doit maintenant quand même se faire une identité à Agadir et monter son propre groupe. Et donc, c'est ça son challenge, si vous voulez. Merci.
So, hello everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the Sharing Knowledge Foundation for inviting me to this conference. And this is also a nice occasion to thank the Sharing Knowledge Foundation for providing me with the scholarship, without which I would not be able to be at CERN now, where I'm doing my Ph.D. And I got this scholarship, of course, with the procedures that Robert described in his talk. I would like to talk a little bit about my academic history in Palestine before coming to CERN. So I did my bachelor degree in the Arab American University in Jenin. And then I did the master's at Birzeit University near Ramallah. And then I get enrolled for 1 semester at the Ph.D. program of Al-Najah University when this opportunity came, and for which I was a candidate. Now I am at CERN. I mean, I finished like 1 year and a half now, and my activities at CERN so far were related to the commissioning of the innermost detector in the Atlas experiment, known as the Pixel detector, which had a new layer known as the insertable B layer, or the IBL. And after this conference, I will be heading to Marseille, to my home institute, to join the team there working in the research of supersymmetric particles. And I'm expected to finish my PhD before the mid of 2017. While I'm working at CERN, I worked with colleagues coming from different countries, different cultures, worked with the people from all the continents, and this was really very inspiring, and it really compatible with the spirit that the Sharing Knowledge Foundation is trying to convey. Now, besides doing my research at CERN, I always get involved in some outreach activities, especially related to my country, Palestine. And so I participated in some master classes that are held, on a regular basis now in 3 Palestinian universities, where we try with some other colleagues to introduce the young students to this fascinating field of physics. And with increasing the awareness of the importance of this field and of science in general in the society, this will hopefully, at the end, make it easier for Palestine to do real contribution to research being done at CERN. Finally, I would like to conclude by talking a little bit about how I plan for my future. I would like to finish my PhD and go back to Palestine and work as a professor in one of the Palestinian universities, inspiring my students about physics and particle physics specifically, and also contributing to a real start of a Palestinian team, a research team that really connects Palestine to CERN and to make real contributions to this fascinating research center. Thank you very much.
Small contingent of other Palestinians, including, for instance, Basalat, who is finishing his thesis, and we hope that this contingent will grow and be a kind of nucleus of Palestinian science working in an international environment. Yes. John.
Yeah, perhaps just a general comment. So Mohamed Gouighri in Agadir is part of a national network of universities that participate in the Atlas experiment from Morocco. And the hope is that there will be a similar network of Palestinian universities. And I think we should also thank the ICTP for collaboration on this, and we'll probably be hearing more about it later on. ICTP has also been very active in promoting particle physics in Palestine. And perhaps I might also comment that CERN is proposing to sign an international cooperation agreement with Palestine before the end of the year, which will provide an official framework for this collaboration. And this is something that we in the Foundation have been pushing, and I'd like to also thank Patrick Fasnacht for his efforts in pushing this thing through.
Hello, it's Abdelnour Lounis from Orsay. I have just to mention and to add that we have a great support from our director in Orsay to welcome Palestinian students. And I'm happy to hear that there are now 3 and 4 students, like my student Ahmed, and a new student coming this year, Tasneem Rashid. She's going to do a thesis with me in my group. So hopefully all these people will create a good team to contribute with not only CERN, but also IN2P3 laboratories like Orsay and Grenoble and so on. So it's a very good operation, and again, we have a good support from IN2P3 and encourage us also financially to support the student for their PhD.
I think we mentioned almost everybody except the first Palestinians, Mohamed.
Yeah.
And I think we should also mention Kate Shaw from the ICTP, who has been very active in supporting the Palestinian team.
Maybe somehow to conclude on this, I mean, we clearly see now that we have quite a few good candidates to bring high-energy physics to Palestine. And as John was mentioning, indeed, CERN is considering the signature of a cooperation agreement. Let's hope the Council will agree to it, and then the signature will take place before the end of the year.
It's a long way before that. She didn't know. Okay.
Maybe I would like to thank all people who are supporting our efforts in Palestine for creating these high-energy physics groups, or even more, maybe physics groups. But what I sometimes, I suppose that we need more coherent, let me say, working from these European institutes like CERN or ICTP or Orsay or IN2P3 for one or more goals in Palestine. I mean, I feel sometimes that we need to be more well-defined ideas to create these groups or this work in Palestine. So I think we need more to speak together here in between our or between the European institutes in order to create this, let me say, group in Palestine and this willing and this wishing in Palestine. So I would like if this will happen.
Well, we're making progress, you know, because when we started this, well, ICTP was very active already, but, you know, CERN was completely ignored. And now there is an initiative at the highest possible level, because it turns out that the Al-Najah National University is the head of this university, is the Prime Minister. And so now there is something which will be discussed by the CERN Council to sign a long-term agreement. And it's open. I do hope that it will be adopted. But you see, we're making progress, you know, every year on that. And that is extremely important, I think, in this world, which is a difficult one, as you know.
So I think it is sort of implicit in what you have said and also in what Fernando has said, that there is a deep connection between the scientific activities that we've been involved with and this issue of migration. And this is something that I want to come back to at the end of the meeting also, that as long as there is such a total disequilibrium economically, socially, and politically, then we're going to see on the TV news, or on the images, the sorts of things that we're also, I would say, ashamed of. And of course, you know, we as scientists can only make a limited contribution to resolving this disequilibrium. But I think the purpose of this meeting is to discuss ways in which science can help in re-equilibrating the world economy.
Other comments?
Albert Sasson from Morocco. Of course, we agree with you, Mr. Klapisch, that the right, the human right for anybody to go wherever he wants or she wants and try to develop. At the same time, we want people also to stay home and develop at home and try to do their best for their country, in a way to be a good patriot. And I will close by a quotation from Boutros Ghali when he was Secretary General of the UN. He said very simply, addressing the industrialized countries, if you don't want you to be invaded by the migrants from developing countries, try to help them to develop. That's the conclusion. We have to co-develop. And we don't see co-development, for example, between the two rims of the Mediterranean. We have seen the Barcelona, for example, dialogue for 12 years, which was a failure, a total failure, in terms of economic development, co-development. There was something in culture, there was something in human rights. This I agree fully. But in terms of economy, where do we stand? We are still with $3,000 per capita, and the others are still with 25, 26, 30,000 per capita. So this is the real issue. Solidarity has been replaced by selfishness. I mean, who speaks of solidarity today? We say cooperation. The institute where we are here was founded because of cooperation. And I'm amazed, by the way, and I don't want to ask Dr. Quevedo, how many things he does, or the institute does, with such a small budget. I imagine, even if 80% comes from Italy, etc., how much do you have in terms of millions of dollars? And isn't the time, by the way, to change the name of the institute? Because it doesn't do theoretical physics only. It does mean even, I heard, medical physics. I'm amazed. Why don't you leave medical physics to the International Atomic Energy? And quantitative life sciences. How many people do life sciences in the world? And so ICTP also does quantitative life sciences. So the time will come, because of the economic crisis, that they will have half of their budget of today. And they will have to focus. So maybe we call it theoretical and applied physics. That's the time. Leave Abdus Salam, of course, and put it not in small letters, but capital letters on the title. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for the kind comments. Yes, I can reply to the part that you referred to ICTP. I think we agree, and Salam agreed, on the point that you said about the brain drain. And that's ICTP tried to fight against the brain drain. Of course, we cannot do miracles, and we cannot change the political situation of each country. So we concentrate on the scientists, and we try to train the best possible scientists and try to make them succeed the best possible way. Hopefully, with this raw material, the countries should be able to appreciate them and then attract them. But we cannot have impact in the country themselves. So we can do what we can do and do it the best possible way. And then the rest is we have to leave it to the countries. So that's the first point. The thing about expanding, I think that's, I don't know if I understood from your point of view to be a positive or a negative point of view. I think we have to adapt to the changes in the world. And the idea of Salam is appropriate, I think, that is, well, theoretical physics is the first, the easiest way to start having impact in developing countries, because you don't need to spend a very expensive laboratories and so on. And that was his field. So on the other hand, he could do better on his own field. Then over the years, thanks to the support of the Italian government that has been increasing the funding, then they are allowed to enter into other fields, and the other fields are still on the basis of the core of physics, and some of them move into more applied subjects. Then the question of the name, I will say just semantics, so I don't want to argue about semantics. The thing is the same thing about CERN. CERN is called CERN, but the end of CERN is nuclear physics, and they're not doing nuclear physics at the moment. So it's just a question of how to change the name, how to adapt the name. So ICTP stands for prestige for 50 years. We don't want to touch the brand name ICTP. That what we do is something beyond theoretical physics. Is the same thing as CERN does something beyond nuclear physics and do particle physics and so on. So we can take your advice, and we have discussed it several times, to add extra wording to our title. So ICTP, and we can say the World Institute for Scientific Education and Research, which sounds very nicely because if you spell the letters means wiser. So that could be a possibility. So essentially we have thought about that, but I take your comment in that sense. And why not to leave medical physics to the IAEA? Actually, we are leaving medical physics to the IAEA because, look, we have here the overall structure, the scientists, also the facilities to have to host students here, and we have been doing it. We are more of academic institutions. The IAEA is very busy doing many other things. So in that sense, since it is part of our tripartite agreement, being IAEA, then we're working together into this medical physics. So I see something as very, very, very positive, not to be criticized in that sense. So IAEA is supporting it because they get the funding, the fellowships, and we have all the facilities, and we work together. Keep in mind also with the UNESCO. UNESCO the S of UNESCO is science, and science is okay. So, and we are part of UNESCO. So who does research in the UNESCO system is ICTP. So in that sense, we are a very important component of the United Nations part for research. So we are a natural place where we can start many things to grow, not just be narrow-minded and just stay with what Salam started 50 years ago, but do it to expand and then to respond to the demand of the world. For instance, medical physics, it was a natural response from us to the real demand of many, many countries that have. It's easy for them to get equipment to be donated to the hospitals, but it's very difficult for them to have properly qualified people to run the material, the equipment, which is very sophisticated. And I can see it in my own country, in Guatemala, you can count with your fingers the number of medical physicists. So in that sense, there's a real need in these countries, and we are here, we have the capacity to help, and we are more than pleased to do it, and we are proud of doing it. That's it.
Another comment? Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Yasser Shaib. I come from Egypt. And my comment actually will be about the issue of brain drain and brain dead, maybe. In 2008, in Louvain-la-Neuve, during the Bologna process follow-up group meeting, we launched the idea of brain circulation. And it's not actually a medical term, it's a physical term, and by the way of saying that we cannot stop people from traveling abroad and settling wherever they want. As Professor Klapisch just said, that people have the right also to stay whenever they feel that their science is important and is appreciated. Yeah. But one thing that we may need to think about is how to make their countries of origin or places of origin benefit from their knowledge while they are staying anywhere else in this world. How can we have their brains virtually circulating not only for their country of origin, but also for any country in the world. I think that this is an idea that we should develop, and we should maybe think about how to make it a reality, how to have a kind of an obligation for the host country that is receiving a professor from Egypt or a professor from Pakistan, that they should also contribute in a way virtually to the home country who have raised this person for many years. Thank you very much.
There's many examples that we can see that, you know, staying in the host country, you can help your country of origin. If you think of France, for instance, many people who are head of important French corporations are from, for instance, Lebanon or other persons. So I think, indeed, it's not a question of brain drain. The responsibility of countries is to train more people. There is one country who says about brain drain, is that because they fear that people who go abroad for a few years will want political change in the country of origin. This is the case, for instance, unfortunately, of Algeria.
Just have a comment about this issue of understanding European policies. We can say a lot about this subject, about how European countries behave regarding this migration. But why people are migrating? Just only a problem of lack of knowledge. There is a lack of justice. There is a lack of freedom. In one word, there is a lack of democracy. So, how many people, I have a question, how many people are migrating to the countries of the Gulf, Arab Gulf?
Yeah.
There's a lot of money there.
Yeah.
So justice, freedom, democracy is really the point. And I have another question. How the European politician will put the interest of local people in developing countries in a higher, much higher position than their own economical interests.
Il y a aussi un autre problème, c'est que quand on forme des étudiants avec un doctorat,
when you train students, PhD students, once they come back to their country, it's very difficult for them to find, in fact, employment at a university. And I know this problem, for instance, when there are teachers that remain at the university forever, and the students simply go away because they are unable to find a job. Therefore, it is not as simple a question, and it's not easy to resolve it.
If I understood correctly about Latin America, it is my region, so I can say something. That applies to some countries, but not to all, I have to say. For instance, in Argentina, at the moment, they're booming. They're having the students graduating from the PhD didn't really get a permanent position. Brazil is booming with the positions. Mexico is booming with positions. I think what you are referring to are to small countries, which is my own case, Guatemala also. But that's of course is a smaller percentage of the population, and I agree with you in the sense that we have been having difficulties to get funding from our own governments and the universities. But for positions, I think at the moment, Brazil, Argentina, even Chile, they're having the positions there are much better than Italy or than Europe. So many people actually from Europe are moving to Latin America precisely because there are more positions there than here. So it's a good opportunity for now for Latin America to do the brain drain in the opposite direction, to get Europeans and Americans also to go there, because now they have good working conditions. The economy of the countries are doing well. So Brazilians can ask very easily, and they're doing it. For instance, our center in Brazil, we have been hiring people from Europe, from the United States, and so on. So in that sense, the things are changing. And so probably what you said was true some time ago, but it's no longer true now for the main countries, and remains true in some small countries because we still need some time to develop.